get started. Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone today. Today's event will provide an overview of the Inflation Reduction Act's impact in Wisconsin. We will also hear additional insights from our guest panelists from the National Wildlife Federation and the Couillard Solar Foundation. Faith in Place and climate justice advocates experience a historic win with the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022, the most significant climate bill in history with over $369 billion in investments in climate justice and clean energy. While this legislation is hopeful, our fight is not over. We must continue to advocate for healthier communities, and you can be a part of that advocacy. Please see the volunteer form linked in the chat to volunteer with Faith in Place's climate action campaign in Wisconsin. By volunteering for Faith in Place climate action campaign in Wisconsin, you'll be able to help us inspire a grassroots network throughout the state to urge our elected officials to work for healthy Wisconsin communities. And lastly, as our presentation unfolds, please hold your questions until the Q&A portion of the event, and we'll be happy to address those inquiries at that time. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to begin by introducing you to Faith in Place. Faith in Place is people of diverse faiths and spiritualities leading the environmental movement to create healthy, just, and sustainable communities for all. We work to empower people of diverse faiths and spiritualities to be leaders in advancing environmental and racial justice, providing resources to educate, connect, and advocate for healthier communities. Your host for tonight's evening will be myself, Alexander Melko, Wisconsin Policy Coordinator with Faith in Place. Okay, in 2022, President Biden signed into law the most sweeping clean energy and climate legislation in history. These investments included in the IRA will cut climate pollution, accelerate the transition to clean energy, protecting our air, climate, and health for our communities. With the IRA, President Biden and climate leaders in Congress have delivered in a big way. And this delivery was received warmly by Wisconsinites with overwhelming support for the Inflation Reduction Act, with 77% of Wisconsin voters supporting investments in clean energy jobs. An additional 78% of Wisconsinites supporting tax incentives for energy efficient vehicles and solar panels, and 70% of Wisconsinites supporting doubling the electricity coming from renewables. And this support is boosted by leading economists. In a letter from economists to the congressional leadership, they write, "This historic legislation makes crucial investments in energy, healthcare, and insuring up the nation's tax system. These investments will fight inflation and lower costs for American families while setting the stage for strong and broadly shared long-term economic growth." Wisconsinites were heard and have won big with the unprecedented climate and clean energy investments approved in the historic act. Again, nearly 8 in 10 Wisconsinites support these kinds of clean energy investments because our state is uniquely positioned to seize on the health and economic benefits of transitioning to a clean energy economy. The IRA and the Investment and Jobs Act represent major wins for families, communities, and climate, with historic investments that will deliver cheaper and more reliable clean energy and good jobs for Wisconsin workers. These historic investments in clean energy production will also lower energy costs for families by making it easier and cheaper for everyone to use more clean energy in their day-to-day lives, such as installing solar panels, buying electric vehicles, and making homes more energy efficient. And those consumers were provided a range of incentives to relieve the high energy costs and decrease utility bills. These incentives include direct consumer incentives to buy energy efficient and electric appliances, clean vehicles, rooftop solar, and invest in home energy efficiency, with a significant portion of the funding going towards lower income households and disadvantaged communities. A substantial investment of nearly $9 billion in consumer home energy rebate programs are focused on low-income consumers to electrify home appliances for energy-efficient retrofits. There will additionally be 10 years of consumer tax credits to make homes more energy efficient, making heat pumps, rooftop solar, electric HVAC, water heats, and electric appliances more affordable. Moreover, there'll be a consumer tax credit of up to $4,000 for middle and lower income people to buy used clean vehicles and up to $7,500 tax credit to buy new clean vehicles. There's a $1 billion grant program to make affordable housing more efficient. And notably, independent analyses have found that the IRA would lower energy costs for families in Wisconsin, with estimates ranging from $300 to $1,800 in annual savings. Meaning the average household in Wisconsin could see between about $1,025 in household energy costs, including electricity, home energy, and transportation by 2030 as compared to 2021. With investments in a clean economy and job creation, the IRA of 2022 will boost clean energy production and manufacturing, creating more jobs in an industry that employs over 71,000 Wisconsinites already. Moreover, a 2020 report produced by the American Council for an Energy Efficient Economy found that federal clean energy stimulus investments similar to those in the IRA would add almost 85,000 clean energy jobs in Wisconsin over 5 years, which is a substantial amount. Additionally, the IRA will expand these opportunities, bringing an estimated $4 billion investment in large-scale clean power generation and storage to Wisconsin by 2030. Additionally, there will be a historic set of tax credits that will create jobs across solar, wind, storage, and other clean energy industries. These credits include bonuses for businesses to pay a prevailing wage so that Wisconsin workers can earn as we build the clean energy future in the United States. And in building this clean energy future in America, Wisconsin's rural communities were provided new climate investments, giving farmers more help than ever to address the climate crisis. The IRA Act of 2022 will invest $20 billion to help farmers implement and expand climate-smart agricultural practices, with $31 billion distributed to support economically distressed farmers, and an additional $2.2 billion to support farmers who have suffered historical discrimination from federal loan programs, and notably $14 billion to lower clean energy in rural communities, including support for rural electric cooperatives, transitions to clean energy, and for the domestic production of biofuels. Okay. In improving transportation to reduce pollution, the most recent data available as of September 30th, 2022, has 7 counties in the Environmental Protection Agency's current non-attainment counties for all criteria pollutants, which in environmental law is an area considered to have air quality worse than the National Ambient Air Quality Standards as defined in the Clean Air Act amendments of 1970. And those 7 counties include Kenosha County, Milwaukee County, Ozaukee County, Racine County, Sheboygan, Washington County, and Waukesha. And to address this, the IRA Act of 2022 will invest in low and zero pollution transportation, including $1 billion to clean heavy-duty trucks, school buses, and transit buses, including $400 million reserved just for communities that don't meet national air quality standards. Additional $3 billion to reduce air pollution at ports, and another $3 billion for environmental justice block grants to reduce air pollution and mitigate climate and health risks. Moreover, an additional $3 billion for projects that reduce pollution and improve access to safe and affordable transportation. And importantly, over the next 5 years, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act will invest $400 million to improve public transportation across the state, providing healthy, sustainable transportation options to replace thousands of dirty transit vehicles with clean zero-emission vehicles. There will additionally be investments to support the expansion of EV charging networks, a critical element to accelerating the adoption of electric vehicles to address the climate crisis and support domestic manufacturing. Delivering a portion of $5 billion nationwide fund for school districts to replace school buses that burn diesel with low or zero pollution school buses. Since the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act was signed into law, millions of dollars of investments in transportation and clean air have already been accounted in Wisconsin, including $115 million for public transportation programs to provide healthy, sustainable transportation options and replace thousands of dirty vehicles with clean, zero pollution options. $24 million for the carbon reduction program to fund projects designed to reduce carbon dioxide pollution from on-road highway sources such as electrifying vehicles, construction bus, rapid corridors, and more. And lastly, an investment of $12 million funding to expand electrical vehicle charging infrastructure. In cutting pollution to advance environmental justice and public health, this act will invest over $1.5 billion in urban tree planting programs to combat heat islands in cities like Milwaukee, providing over $281 million for air quality, including historically overburdened communities exposed to persistent air pollution. And impressively, the IRA over the next 5 years is tasked with investments to improve water infrastructure and ensure Wisconsinites have access to clean, safe drinking water, and substantial investments to improve public transportation across the state, providing sustainable transportation options, which in our state, non-white households are 5.9 times more likely to commute via public transportation. And those Wisconsinites who take public transportation spend an extra 63% of their time commuting. And lastly, we'll see $1 billion in funding channeled to the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative to accelerate efforts to provide safe water for recreating and drinking and protecting restorative native habitats. Great. In final thoughts, the Inflation Reduction Act was a monumental win for the world of clean energy. The IRA will be the backbone of the United States' effort to decarbonize our energy sector, spur clean energy implementation across all demographics, and significantly grow the clean energy economy. In the future, we will see advancements including, but not limited to, renewable energy generation, electric vehicle tax credits, energy efficiency and electrification manufacturing and production as Wisconsin transitions to clean energy in our state. Lastly, it's crucial to note much of the implementation and administration of the Inflation Reduction Act is still not understood. Therefore, we will need to continue to be engaged as the unfolding of the legislation develops. Now I'm honored to now introduce our panelists for tonight's webinar. With the National Wildlife Federation, we have Denise Poliak, Regional Field Director, who is an organizer and activist who works with diverse communities to advocate for environmental justice and conservation to combat the climate crisis. Also with the National Wildlife Federation is Jordan Purr, an organizing consultant who works to implement environmentally solid protections at the federal level. Jordan organizes public press and community events to engage leaders, activists in the community on climate action and environmental justice. And with the Couillard Solar Foundation, we have Jackie Harrison Jewell. Jackie is the executive director of the Couillard Solar Foundation, which helps Wisconsin nonprofits go solar. Jackie has over 20 years of marketing, design, and administrative management experience. She has worked for several nonprofits with various missions and organizations focused on the renewable energy and solar markets. I'd like to thank you for being on today's panel, and I'll start with a question for both NWF and Couillard. Can you both please introduce your organization and your work in the communities you serve?
Okay, I'll go first. My name is Jackie Harrison Jewell, as Alexander said, with the Couillard Solar Foundation. Our foundation has been around for 5 years, and primarily what we do is we focus on Wisconsin nonprofits who obviously traditionally have not been able to access the kinds of tax credits that private and commercial organizations are in order to make solar installation more affordable. So we have programs where nonprofits apply, and if they receive a grant, we give them up to half of the solar panels that they need for their solar array as a grant. So this has been something that we've been able to help over 180 solar arrays be built in the state so far, all across the state, you know, from Milwaukee all the way up to Hayward and in that area. And a lot of these, we've spent about just over $3.3 million in grant value. And that has produced over $20 million in solar projects across the state, which means local jobs, clean energy jobs and clean energy effort. And it also is over 10 megawatts of solar power on our Wisconsin grid, which translates to, it's approximately 1% of all the solar in the state. So our little tiny nonprofit is making, pretty big impact. But we are just a tiny nonprofit. And so we're very excited we were very excited when the Inflation Reduction Act was signed, because that was a game changer for a lot of nonprofits. One of the things that Alex did not mention is that in addition to these, all of these wonderful benefits for homeowners and for commercial organizations, nonprofits are now being pulled into the loop. There is a direct pay option as part of the Inflation Reduction Act, and that direct pay option means that if you are a nonprofit and you, it's not just for solar, if you install renewable energy of many different kinds, if you install a heat pump, if you install solar, if you install battery storage, if you have, do energy efficiencies, all of those things, you can get a direct payment from the federal government when you show them what you have spent on this project. So this is huge for nonprofits all over that are looking to do improvements and just looking for ways to make it affordable for themselves. That does not mean that the Couillard Solar Foundation won't still be around. We are really excited about this for our nonprofit partners and friends. So it is probably going to change a little bit on how we run our programs, because we don't want our grant to have it be less of an advantage for them to get this direct pay from the government because we gave them a grant. So we are going to be, as the more information comes out about how this direct pay option of the IRA is going to work, we will be looking at changes we need to make, because we still want to prioritize for all of our nonprofits we want them to prioritize, get the most advantage that they can. And the last thing that I want to say is that right now the Public Service Commission is taking public comments about whether or not they should decide that third-party financing should be an option for Wisconsinites. And this is really important because third-party financing actually gives people an opportunity, like homeowners and anyone who's interested in solar but who can't afford it, gives them a financing option that they really haven't ever had before. And many of the other states in the country have that. And in those states that have third-party financing, renewable energy is just taking off because it's such a great way for them to be able to do this. So if you are interested in making a comment to the Public Service Committee about your support for third-party financing, get in touch with me. I'll put my email address in the comments, and I will send you information about how to do that, because it's so important. When I went and looked like last week, at the end of the week, I went and looked, and a lot of people were commenting saying that they didn't think that it should be an option. So we really need everyone who believes in clean energy to get out there and let them know we really do want this and we want it in our state. So sorry, I went on a little long, but thanks so much for coming out tonight.
Thank you, Jackie. That was great to hear. And for NWF, again, the question was, can you please introduce your organization and the work in the communities you serve?
Hi, my name's Denise Poliak. I'm a regional field director with the National Wildlife Federation, and kind of the opposite of Jackie. The National Wildlife Federation is a large national organization that has operations and members in every state, along with Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands and the District of Columbia. And our mission is really to make sure is to unite everyone to ensure that wildlife and people thrive in a changing world. And we believe in science, believe in applying science as we advocate for policy, but we also have programs like Gardening for Wildlife and things at the very local level. We're really happy to work with Faith in Place in Wisconsin and in Illinois and other places. And actually, I am a neighbor of Wisconsin since I'm in Chicago, but we have an organizer there in Wisconsin. And Jordan, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Jordan Pierre. I'm the organizer here in Milwaukee for the National Wildlife Federation. And the work that I do is centered around advocating for and implementing climate legislation and environmental protections at the federal level. But the way that Denise and I, is who I'm referring to when I say we, the way we like to go about that is by centering local issues, especially here in Wisconsin. There's a lot of eyes on Wisconsin all of the time. So centering these, local issues that we have, we are in a position where we're more likely to have larger audiences see what we're saying. So things that we've done to advocate for things like the cross-state air pollution rule, we had a press event outside of the Elm Road generator, which is a coal field power plant a little bit south of Milwaukee. And we used that to tie into how regulating the emissions from these power plants, especially those that cross state lines, is so important. And even though it's a administrative rule, it's a federal thing, it has a direct impact on us here locally.
And the only thing I'd add, Alexander, in kind of response to the second part of your question and kind of building on what Jordan said, is that we want to unite everyone. So we work across all communities in Wisconsin, yes, rural communities in the western part of the state. The person who worked with us last year in Jordan's position was in Eau Claire and worked there to, urban areas in Milwaukee and pretty much every place in between. So we want to unite everybody, which means working everywhere.
Thank you, Denise and Jordan. Okay. In what ways do you see the Inflation Reduction Act impacting the work at your respective organizations? I'll start with the Couillard Solar Foundation. And Jackie, you had noted a few things in your introduction, but is there anything you'd like to add?
Sure. I think that we're excited about this because we feel that what this will do for us is there are, there's varying levels of nonprofits. There are some nonprofits that have plenty of funding, very enthusiastic supporters, and they are going to be in a position with this 30% direct pay. They're going to be in a position to be able to afford solar with no help from us. And that will allow us to concentrate on those nonprofits who just can't even, right now can't even see it on their radar. It's just not even something that they would be able to consider. So we feel that this is going to allow us to focus on, and you talked about the social justice impact. And we feel this is going to be able to allow us to focus on those nonprofits that are servicing, underserved populations, whether it's rural or urban. There are so many people that just really need our help. Like, for example, the homeless, and providing affordable housing that also has solar, or food pantries, and also the idea that in some of these neighborhoods, solar helps build resilience for the neighborhood. Their power grid is less likely to go down, which means that there's less likely to be adverse impacts from extreme weather events and things of that nature. So we're excited about that.
And for us, we believe that climate change is obviously real, but we also believe that it's like the biggest threat to wildlife, to our communities, to our future. Therefore, the Inflation Reduction Act was incredibly important. We worked very hard to get it passed, since it's the biggest investment the United States has made in reducing carbon, though it by itself won't be enough to get us to the goals that we have for 2050. So we need to do more. And of course, climate is a global problem. So we need to set an example for everyone else, since we have the resources and the capacity to do it and still emit more carbon than per person than any other place in the world. So for us, this is a really incredible investment. And what it means for us is to, take the steps that need to happen to make sure that the money gets used in the most efficient and the most just way that it can. Because we know from past experience that just pouring money into existing systems, if you don't make sure those systems operate correctly or get the money to the right places. So we're really invested in making sure these resources go to programs where people who are most impacted by the environmental problems and by climate changes and the problems that we see as a result of the climate are the communities that benefit from this. So it's very important that these tax credits be accessible. It's very important that we do education, not only about the threats of climate, but about the ways that individuals we can do things, and equally, and we'll get to this I think a little bit later, how we can collectively do things together to be able to address climate and to be able to make sure that these funds move in a way that benefits wildlife and benefits people. And Jordan, you might want to say a little bit more about what we're doing in Wisconsin.
Yeah, so in Wisconsin, we are seeing, of course, a bunch of projects all over. This isn't specifically NWF, but like in Milwaukee, we're seeing things like Milwaukee's pledge to be net zero by 2050 and the Inflation Reduction Act really benefiting the initiatives that are taking place here. Things like you had said, Alexander, electric vehicles for school buses, public transportation, just increased efficiency of public transportation and making it benefit everyone more than it currently does. Things like more conservation efforts throughout the lake and the rivers, revitalization and greening different spaces. Especially there's a group here who, because of the Inflation Reduction Act, is now able to double the amount of schoolyards they can change from asphalt tops to green spaces now with water gardens. So it improves our environmental health, it improves the health of children, and it's really great.
It is really great, Jordan. Thank you for that. And to swing back to what Jackie said, I love this resiliency through solar. It sounds like the tagline for a t-shirt. I like how that was said. So to Jackie, can you tell us a little bit more how the Couillard Solar Foundation helps Wisconsin nonprofits get solar for their organizations? Can you go in a little bit more depth on that?
Sure. So how the program works, well, first of all, our mission is sort of two-pronged. We want to help nonprofits get solar, but we also think that in education about renewable energy and specifically solar is very important. So one of the things that we've really started to do is make an effort to participate in more things like this, where we're getting in front of people and talking to them about renewable energy and about how they can get involved with, renewable energy efforts. So that's something that I think, any of you listening, if you want us to come and talk to your organization, I know that's sort of part of one of my mandates from my board is to reach out and do more education on this. And then the more direct hands-on aspect of our program is that we very specifically, if a nonprofit is at a certain point in their development, so we will talk to any nonprofit that is interested in learning more just generically, what is this about? What can we do? We'll talk to you at any point. But if you make the decision and you're deciding that you are going to install solar, you apply for the program that's specific to you, either Solar for Good or Solar on Schools. Solar on Schools is public schools, public Wisconsin schools, either K-12 through university. Solar for Good is everyone else. And that includes any nonprofit that we've had. We have churches, we have libraries, homeless shelters, food pantries, whatever kind of nonprofit you can think of, Boys and Girls Club, any sort of organization, we will work with you. Affordable housing program. I was just at a ribbon cutting for affordable housing project yesterday in La Crosse. So you apply for it. And then our standards have been, I mean, our goal has been to help as many people as we possibly can. We do need to be a little bit more, it does need to be a little bit more competitive now, but that's why I said that, because we're getting lower on money, but that's why I said that it's great that this direct pay is there, because, you know, other groups can take advantage of that. But so when a project is accepted for a grant, we provide them with half of the solar panels that they need for their project. Then they can either purchase the other half of their solar panels from us, or they can buy them from someone else. And then they can go ahead and we just give them the panels and they put the project on. The only thing that we really ask in return is that they participate in a survey that we send out after their array has been set up. And we ask them to help the administrative bodies create a case study that we can use then to help educate others.
Thank you for that follow-up, Jackie.
Sure.
And our next question will be for the NWF, and in particular, Jordan. How have you, as an organizer and activist who works with diverse communities to advocate for environmental justice and conservation issues, engaged with the communities you work with to help advocate for the problems you're focused on?
Yeah, so engaging and centering different communities can show up in a million different ways, but as an organizer, it is most important that everyone understands that Black and Indigenous people in Wisconsin are at the forefront of this work, and that they bear the largest, or they bear the majority of the burden of the climate crisis. And doing the work, I know that we cannot make progress if we are not centering these voices and their expertise. So to me, this means before advocating for a policy, advocating or implementing a policy, a change, or a project, that we are collaborating with BIPOC communities and making sure that what is done not only just is approved, but that it's shaped by Black and Indigenous people here in Wisconsin. It also means that you are collaborating even when, you know, you don't have your own project, you know, that you want to move forward with, but in day-to-day lives and uplifting work as well, other groups and communities work as well. We get to work with a lot of really great neighborhood groups who are fantastic representatives of the communities that they work in. But it's also important to know that communities aren't a monolith. So, you know, it goes beyond just collaboration and going and volunteering and supporting local businesses and going and listening in on community hearings and town halls and hearing what everyone has to say. It's so important to get to know and to get to hear from, you know, a very wide range of community members throughout, you know, the city, the state, whatever it may be.
Thank you so much. And our final question is for both organizations. What is your advice for those working in the environmental field, and what motivates you to continue embarking on your work?
My advice is twofold. And the first one is something along the lines of what Jordan was talking about, is that we aren't going to get anywhere in this process if we don't work with each other. So if you're interested in supporting something, I would say reach out to organizations and ask them if there's, you know, if you have a particular interest, see if there's an organization that aligns with that interest. If you are interested in getting renewable energy for one of your organizations, reach out to us at the Couillard Solar Foundation, because we'd be happy to talk to you. But we really believe that relationships and partnering is going to be the thing that is going to help us make this really important and you know, get us to the point where we need to be. And the second thing is that when it does come down to, you know, implementing this renewable energy, just make sure that you're doing your research, because we have seen that, you know, like for example, there's some companies here in Wisconsin that are kind of going door to door and selling solar because it's a big deal right now, and there's a lot of people interested in it, and they're not reliable or reputable organizations. So when it is time to make your decisions, reach out to people, get a second opinion, and make sure that you're going with a reputable organization, because that's very important. And what keeps me going with this is that, again, there's two parts to that. And the first one is I feel like every day when I get up, I'm doing something that's important. I mean, it's not that other work isn't important, but, you know, I mean, I have a background in marketing and graphic design. I could be marketing, you know, unicycles or, you know, shoes. But I'm marketing instead something that I feel like is going to help save the planet. So that makes it's important for me. And then the other part of it is that, you know, it's, you know, participating in things like this and meeting people like you you tend to sometimes think that you are a voice alone in the wilderness, and you are not. There are many, many other people who are very interested and committed, and you know, don't be afraid to speak up and let people know that this is something important to you, because I'm sure you'll find many people that feel the same as you do.
So I guess my answers are really similar to Jackie's. I think that for me, it's like, don't be discouraged. I think sometimes the more you read and the more you watch about what's going on in the world, especially when it comes to climate and lots of other issues, that it feels really easy to get discouraged. And I think the best anecdote to that is, you know, to do the things you can personally, whether it's recycling or turning off the temperature down a little bit more, but really the things that we do that make change are things we do together. So I belong to, in my volunteer life, I belong to an organization, and we like to say that you have to vote, join, and act. And that's what we need to do together. I mean, be informed about the election, be a conservation voter. There's lots of information out there. Now's the time to do that. You know, join, find others who share your values, who share your concerns, who want to take action. And if it doesn't exist in your community, look beyond your community or start something yourself, because there's folks out there everywhere in all the places that we live. And then act, you know, do things together, because that's the only way we're going to realize the real change that we want to have and make this planet a better place for, you know, ourselves, but really for the generation that's going to follow us, which I think, Jordan, you're part of that generation, so you can add your advice.
Well, my answer is also very similar to both Denise and Jackie. I was going to say, just always remember to lead with compassion, you know, lead with the fact that we are all here and we all love, you know, our land, people, air, water, and animals. And that's what, you know, we're here to do, is protect those things. And that even though, you know, throughout our government at whatever level, things move slowly and sometimes they don't move at all. And it's frustrating, but, you know, we are making progress and we are making change, and what motivates me, of course, historic bills like the Inflation Reduction Act being passed, that was a big motivation. Did never think it would happen, and it happened. So that was great. But also, again, the sense of community, going on walks and seeing, you know, sign up sheets for different conservation groups and all the contact information's pulled off the flyers, things like that. It does motivate me, seeing that, you know, everyone's sprinkled around and they do care. People are, you know, in their free time, or professionally, they're making change and they're putting in effort, and that gives me a lot of hope and motivation.
Thank you all. Now we'll lead into our question and answer for the room. I'm seeing in the chat from Deborah, what is the source of the polling stats showing support? Deborah, if you drop your email in the chat, I'd be happy after the event to send you that information where I got those statistics from. Scrolling down further, let's see what we have. We have Bob. How can we find out what energy improvements qualify for the Inflation Reduction Act, direct payments for nonprofits? And Jackie, I believe you had answered directly to Bob. Is there anything you'd like to add to the room at large?
Yeah, if you, right now, how this direct pay to nonprofits, the rules around that are still kind of up in the air. They haven't quite decided how specifically that's going to work. But any of the things that are listed for commercial or homeowners in terms of electric vehicles, charging stations, batteries, solar arrays, energy efficiency, and heat pumps, any of those things that are listed will also be applicable for nonprofits. So you don't have to, it's just going to be a different method of getting that money back to the organization.
Thank you so much. We have Peter in the chat. Who in Wisconsin state government will be making the decisions about how the IRA money is spent and programs are implemented? Mm-hmm. And Peter, that is something I'm wondering too. So yeah.
I think maybe it can help a little bit, Alexander and Peter. I think there's no one answer. I mean, some of the money that's going to be moving is going to be moving very strictly with direction from the federal government. The tax credits and things will be federal tax credits. So some of those things aren't dependent upon the state of Wisconsin or local governments. Many other things are. And I think it depends. Some of them, it's going to make a big difference on who's the governor of Wisconsin in the next 4 years. It's going to matter what kind of other legislation exists in Wisconsin. I think one of the questions we didn't get to was like, what are the policy challenges? And I think some of the policy challenges are very much that, every state is different, and we live in a really polarized political time, and that it's really important to put, the science and the facts, front forward in deciding how to do these things. So there is no one answer. It all depends on the program, and it all depends on but a fair amount of the money, some of the money will move directly from the federal government to local and partner organizations, especially like around environmental justice and things like that. So there is no one answer, and there will be a lot of work done at the state level as the money starts moving to figure all this out.
So also too, just so you know, there is a state department of climate change. And they have a newsletter that they put out. So that would be one way if you're interested in following along on the different programs and different information about Wisconsin. That's a great newsletter. And then Dane County, which is where I live, right around the capital, Madison is Dane County. They also have a Dane County Office of Climate Change, Energy and Climate Change. And so they also do a great newsletter that kind of talks about some of the new programs and things coming up. So those are two newsletters that you can sign up for that would give you some information kind of as it comes up.
Thank you both for your knowledge on that. Are there any closing questions from the room before we conclude today's event?
If I could just jump in, Alexander, with one other comment, maybe to a question we didn't get to, is that, as important as the Inflation Reduction Act is, equally important are going to be laws that get passed or get considered in Wisconsin going forward in our neighboring states, and other federal bills that are still pending or are going to be happening. So one of those bills is the Recovering America's Wildlife Act, if you're particularly interested in wildlife. It's a bill that's passed the House. It's currently before the Senate, and it will move money to state wildlife agencies and to tribal interests or tribal nations in order to be able to address species that are not yet endangered but are threatened. A third of the species of wildlife in the United States are threatened right now. There are 3 billion fewer birds in the air than there were in 1970. There are 77 species of birds that are teetering on the edge of going onto the endangered species list, including ones that you would see that we see in Chicago, that you see in Wisconsin. And it's really important to address these species now, especially as they're under more threat because of climate. So I'm going to drop into the chat real quickly a link to a site on the National Wildlife page where you can go and take action to let your senators know in Wisconsin that you care about wildlife and would like to see this act passed. Next year, there's a Farm Bill and a Grasslands Act that will include important conservation measures. So it would be really great, like I said, join, find organizations based upon your interest in the things that you care about and follow them. And would certainly love it if you follow us at National Wildlife Federation or follow organizations like Faith in Place. And we're going to be sharing and working together.
Well summarized, Denise. Thank you. Okay, this is all for today's event. Please feel free to contact me at the information included. It's alexander@faithinplace.org with any questions. And I hope everyone has a good evening. Thank you so much for attending tonight.
Thanks. Bye.